Good evening and welcome again this evening, this Friday evening, the 25th of June 2021. Very chilly, I'm feeling cold. I hope wherever you are, you're not feeling as cold as I am, but I'm warmly dressed, so it is fine. And you should dress warmly, it's a very, very cold season indeed. And like I said the other day, for the pregnant, the hormones cheat you that you are warm, and you can dress very, very carelessly in this cold season. Just look at how your friends are dressing and dress like that. Anyway, that's by the way. We welcome again for this session. We're going to do another question and answer session because we didn't finish the questions the other time. So we'll continue with that session for today, and then we shall see as how many we can cover. We talk from a platform called She Chooses to Live Initiative. It's an NGO. It's geared towards giving people knowledge, as much knowledge as we can avail to people, and according to what questions and aspirations they have, so that we give them answers where we can, and they are able to make the right choices about life. Mainly, it's about demystifying health, something that is really not talked about very much in our communities, especially what is reproductive health, what's to do with sexuality. Those are things that are kind of taboo in our region, so people don't seem to talk about them. And hence people can land themselves in very bad choices, not because they wanted to choose that way, but because they have no knowledge, nobody told them. So we're trying, as She Chooses to Live, we are trying to bridge that gap as much as we can, and demystify things, sexuality, things, reproductive health. So to my left here is my tech guy. She's called Marion. She's the one who puts us online and removes us from online. So she's a very efficient tech guy. I think I'll start calling her tech girl. But anyway, tech person is is the name. And I'm Dr. Jane Wakahe, an obstetrician gynecologist, also with a degree in public health. And we both are coming from the platform that She Chooses to Live Initiative, which, like I said, is about giving information and trying to reach out especially to the underprivileged, so that they'll be able also to make choices and and live, put a smile on their faces also, just like the other people. So yes, today we are doing questions and answers, and tech guy will ask the questions and I'll answer the questions. So we can start off now.
Alright, so question 1. 28 years old. I have one child that I got 6 years ago. I took Depo till 2018, took the pill till 2019. I've had normal periods. I've been trying to get pregnant, but not yet.
So 2019 to now is quite a time. So once you have been having regular sex, and by regular sex I mean at least 3 times in a week, and not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but scattered through the week. So you skip some days, you have some days. If one is having sex properly for a whole year and there's nothing wrong with either of the two, the man or the woman, then conception usually should happen. So we start to worry a year later, and 2019 to now has been more than a year. So we would want to maybe advise you that it could be either, it takes 2 people to make a baby, so it could be either you or your husband. And if you're getting regular periods, it almost means that you are bringing out eggs. So the thing to check on you would be your tubes, whether they are open or not. And that would you need to go to a hospital for that to be done. It's an X-ray. You need to be assessed properly for it to be done. And then for your husband, he would need to have his semen checked. Even if a man has had children before, as long as they've stayed like 3 or 4 years without a child, then they still need a checkup to see whether their sperm still retains the numbers that it was or retains the quality. So you need to check up, both of you. But I believe usually the woman gets checked first, so get yourself checked first. And if nothing is found wrong, then have your husband checked.
All right, so the second question, is there something that can improve the normal formation of a baby?
Well, the main thing is to really just eat well, eat a healthy diet, exercise, avoid things like alcohol, avoid things like smoking and drugs, and have a health checkup before you become pregnant. Usually, if it's not something that is genetic, then the diseases that will affect it will be detected. If they're there, then you are advised accordingly. But the main thing also is to check that the first few weeks of pregnancy you are not eating or ingesting things that could harm that baby. So when you are pregnant, the first 12 weeks, the baby is making its organs, dividing itself in its various kinds of organs. So what you eat would affect the baby, and things like medicines that you don't know whether they are safe or not, and things like drugs you try to avoid. And before you conceive, then you also should start taking folic acid. It is helpful. As early as 6 months from the time you want to conceive until conception and throughout pregnancy, you should take folic acid.
All right. The third question, I removed my coil in November 2020 and I'm not yet pregnant. What could be the issue?
November 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just like 5-6 months ago, 7. That's a bit early to worry about it too much. I would suggest that you just relax and have sex in a regular manner, and see. If by December, which is a year later, you haven't conceived, then you start getting yourself checked the same way I have just answered the other person, that you get yourself checked whether your tubes are still open or not, and you, if need be, your husband gets checked whether they have the good count of sperm and good motility of sperm. So yeah.
I have itching on episiotomy from November 2020.
Episiotomy is a cut we give when somebody is getting a baby normally, and we cut the area of what is called the perineum, so that we make enough space for the baby to be able to come through without tearing the girl. Now, if when it is stitched, it should heal. Actually, in a few weeks, it should be totally healed, and there should be no itch or any soreness. So if it is getting sore and itchy, most likely your skin is the type that develops a keloid. So what you do is you please do not scratch. Just do not scratch. If you feel itchy, just press it in and go to a hospital, go to a doctor and get checked whether you're starting a keloid. If it's a keloid, then you'll be given a cream to try to reduce the keloid. And if it's a keloid and you continue scratching, you'll make it bigger. It just makes the keloid grow a bit bigger. So do not scratch, just take it to hospital. It should be healed by now.
38 years old. I have not had a baby and I'm not able to conceive.
That's a hard. I wish I knew more about that question. How long you've been trying, what tests have been done. Because again, I'm just going to repeat that it takes 2 to make a baby. If you're getting periods regularly, then it most likely means you're ovulating. if you are ovulating, then the problem could be that it's your tubes, or it could be that it is your partner who has got a problem. By the way, the problems are shared basically equally. The man caters for about 40%, the woman caters for about 40%, and the rest 20% is shared together. Can be the two people at the same time having a problem. So when when a baby is not coming, it could be either. So I need to know more about what how long and how frequent is your sex. Normally, I will tell people to have sex every alternate day if they are trying to make a baby, but that seems to be tiresome to most people. So 3 days in a week, not tiresome, maybe they can't even afford the time, but 3 days in a week scattered throughout the week should be able to catch an egg. Let me take a bit of water and tell you. The egg, when it is produced, lives 24 hours. If there is no sperm swimming around within that 24 hours, the egg dies. So you have to wait until the next month. And that's why it's so important when you're trying to make a baby that you have sex every very frequently indeed, not keeping 4 or 5 days and then having Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That may not give you a baby.
I miscarried in 2018. It took long to conceive. I see here something about his HSG. I think she said she also has blocked tubes. She was able to conceive again, but miscarried.
HSG is a check on whether tubes are open or not, the fallopian tubes. When a pregnancy is going to occur, then the egg comes from the ovary, then is transported through the tube where it is met by the sperm, and fertilization happens in the tube, and they go as one and hold on to the mother in the uterus. Now, if the tubes are blocked, if the tubes are not open, then there can be no connection between sperm and egg, so there can be no pregnancy. So HSG is a check on whether the tubes are open or not. It's an X-ray. I would advise you to not do it that very frequently. Don't keep doing HSG. You shouldn't do it any more frequently than like 2 or 3 yearly, because then it is X-ray. It irradiates the pelvis, and the ovaries are right there. So it's not something you should do very frequently. But anyway, once a HSG is done, sometimes because it is done by pushing some dye into the tube, sometimes you get a little opening through the tube, and one can conceive actually through that opening. So normally, if you're young, we tell you, I mean, even if you're not young, we tell you once we do an HSG, you try for the next 6 months and see what happens. Now, if your tubes have been, said, blocked or partially blocked, and you become pregnant, you miss your period, please quickly go to hospital, because that could be a tubal pregnancy. It could be a pregnancy that is happening in the tube, and it can be very, very dangerous. So anyway, this lady was said to be having blocked tubes, but she conceived after HSG, which is a good thing. But the problem I see is not just the blocked tubes. It seems like this particular lady has miscarried twice. So what I would say is, the next time you miss your period, well, you shouldn't repeat HSG just now, like I said. But the next time you miss your period, if you miss your period, kindly go to hospital almost immediately, so that they can, it may be that you're having a problem with hormonal support of the pregnancy, and that's why you're miscarrying twice. So go to hospital almost immediately. You know you've missed your periods. They'll check and see that it's not an ectopic pregnancy. They'll do an ultrasound. Ultrasounds are safe. You can do many. There is no problem. So they'll check, and then they will hopefully put you on hormonal support, and you'll be able to carry your pregnancy. So you seem to have two problems: the blocked tubes, but also the miscarriage, which is very, very disheartening indeed.
Is it good to cut private hair?
Sorry, I didn't laugh. It's not good or bad to cut private hair. There is no medical reason to cut private hair. Just keep it clean. But if you must cut, use trim with scissors. Don't go scraping the skin with razor blades. But there is no medical reason to cut the hair. But yeah, I hear a lot about cutting the hair, and I usually ask, why is it cut? And you will not believe the stories I get told. I'm not going to tell them here, but apparently it's fashionable to have no hair when having sex. That's the story, the main story I hear. But there is no reason. there is absolutely no medical reason to shave the pubic hair.
Okay, so there's a lady named Rosie Wangoi. She's asking, what makes an infant have body parts that are not well developed?
Oh, sorry. I think we said that to cover it as a session,
Okay.
alongside with the babies dying inside the uterus and the babies being abnormal. That one we shall cover as a session soon, hopefully. Maybe even next week. We might do chaos or that one next week. We'll cover that as a whole session, but we promise we will.
What would cause lower abdominal pain and an itchy discharge?
That would likely be a yeast infection. Yeast infection would not cause low abdominal pain. It would cause an itchy discharge. The low abdominal pain could be something else, maybe an associated urine tract infection, or not an infection at all. It should be just that you don't drink water like me, and your urine is very acidic, and it is burning your bladder. So it could be the low abdominal pain and the itch are not connected. The itch doesn't cause the low abdominal pain, and the low abdominal pain doesn't cause the itch. So there one needs to be checked for two things. One, for yeast infection, which is fairly common in all women and easily treatable. And also then check for a urine check to see whether the urine is infected, and then get treated for whichever is found to be there.
Clots with periods.
Sorry? Clots with periods.
Yeah.
Depending on what you call clots. If they are little ones, they are acceptable. If they are heavy ones, then most likely it means that you are bleeding a bit more than you should, for whatever reason, that you're having very heavy periods. When periods become very heavy, when the shedding of the blood becomes too much, then the blood is not able to flow through the cervix, the narrow opening of the cervix very quickly, and it gets clotted. It becomes like little bits of liver coming out. Now, if that is happening, then one needs to check out why they are having heavy periods, especially if it is something that is happening of recent onset. Women are geared to have a certain amount of bleeding, and every woman has a certain kind of amount of bleeding and a certain number of days they bleed. So if that changes, then either to be less or to be more, then one needs to be checked. So yes, clots could mean that you have a reason why you are bleeding too much. One of the reasons is things like fibroids. The other reason is things like adenomyosis, endometriosis. So there could be many reasons why you're bleeding clots. So just get yourself checked if you think if it's a recent change that has become the clots have become a bit more.
Okay. So this question says, I think they're saying that they got their first menses at 23,
Mhm.
and then again, and they have what is called uterine hypoplasia.
Um, periods, finally, when we see periods outside the, the vagina, there is a whole system that has happened to make that period come by. And the original area is in the brain. There's something in the brain that controls, hormonally controls the ovaries, which hormonally control the uterus, which then finally sheds blood. At age 23, one should be having regular periods. And it could be any part of those areas. Could it be the gland in the brain? Could it be the ovaries? Could it be the uterus? That is the issue. So one needs a lot of checkup to decide which of those areas is the cause of no periods. I believe that what the ultrasound said is hypoplasia of the uterus, which means that the uterus is small. It has grown small. Hyper means bigger, and bigger we would not expect a bigger uterus to not bleed. So most likely the report of the ultrasound, although it's being said hyper, is mostly likely hypoplasia, which means that then the uterus may either not be well developed because of itself, or because of the ovaries, or because of the gland in the brain. So you need real proper checkup to ascertain all those systems, and to see if anything can be rectified in either of the system. But period is not just uterus. There is a whole chain of reaction that brings out the period to happen.
Okay. I have a wife who is 3.5 months pregnant. She gets incredibly angry. She will not eat her greens. She will not cook. I'm thinking of taking her back home.
Kwanza, that was in Kiswahili.
I translated it for
It
you.
came very nice.
Should we read the original?
Read the original so that they know it is their question we are answering.
Let's see. Okay, so now this is how he originally said it. Huh?
Yeah.
Hello, mom. I have a wife and she's 3.5 months pregnant, but akona shida moja. Anakasirika sana. Akikasirika hataki
I'm not
kupika.
laughing.
Na hataki kukula greens. Mimi hata nafikiri kumrudisha kwao. Advise me on this.
So, men, when a woman gets pregnant, she becomes a container, a container for your baby, actually, a container. So she is bombarded with very interesting hormones that can make her very happy one minute, very annoyed the next minute, very forgetful, very lazy, very they're not very good things, and they can hate you, and they can even say that you're smelling bad. Sometimes they're the ones who have bought you the cologne, but they want you to stop using it because you're smelling bad. So those are usually hormonal changes, and fortunately they settle after a certain age of pregnancy. They settle. But yes, a woman does change. She gets changed actually by the hormones of your baby that she's carrying in, because those hormones are thrown into her blood system, and she stops being herself. She's really just a different being. In fact, if you see her crying, just ask her, is it to do with me? And if she says it's not to do with you, just walk away and let her cry and finish, and then come back. And by the way, this goes also for the any pregnancy. It is a very weird state. So do not take her back home because she's getting annoyed, and do not take usimrudishe kwao because she's getting annoyed, or because she's unhappy, and because she refuses to cook. In fact, there is a hormone that makes women very lazy when they become pregnant, and that's because they have to be made lazy to be not very active. Because if they become very active, then they'll lose the baby, because the woman's body knows the baby is a burden. It feels it as a burden. So if it gets overexerted, then the baby will be lost. So they will be very lazy. And the other thing is, as their bodies are being made lazy, their brains are also being made lazy. So they will be very forgetful. So if you find your wife being not doing exactly what you said to be done at exactly the time you said to be done, please do not be annoyed with her. Having said that, now you women, do not take advantage. Try to remember that you are living with people, and people who care for you, and don't start imagining that if you haven't told them something they already know, because they do not. So just explain your case very nicely, and msirudishane kwa wenyewe, just just stay together and have that baby together. The baby needs the both of you.
It's also good to write things down.
Yes. When you're pregnant, you need a diary, not the phone, because you'll forget where you wrote. And in fact, the diary, you need to tell somebody, this is where I write. So you write anything down that you feel, anything you want to ask your doctor, anything you want to have done for you. And please don't assume that people are knowing. They do not know. They cannot read your mind. But that's the state of pregnancy. It's a very, very interesting state indeed. It makes a woman not herself. And this goes on for about 6 weeks after delivery. She's still not herself. So forgive, but again, like I said, women, do not take advantage, please. Where you can help it, just behave normally. Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible to have tubal ligation? Is it tubal ligation or ligation?
Ligate.
Okay.
To tie.
Is it possible to do tubal ligation 5 months after CS? I've had three cesarean sections, and I've made up my mind.
The straightforward answer to that question would be yes. Yes, you can have your TL. Anything after 3 months after you've had a C-section, you can have another operation. But that question of yours has begged another question for me. And the question is this. You are done a third cesarean section only 5 months ago. Now, a third cesarean section is not an emergency. So you knew that you are going to be done a cesarean section. Now here is my question. Why didn't you ask to be done tubal ligation then, when it is so very, very easily done, and the operation you don't even get to notice that tubal ligation was done. You only feel the pain of the cesarean section. So my worry is, are you really fed up with babies, or are you reacting to the sleepless nights that you are undergoing just now? Is that the case? Because I'm thinking tubal ligation is not something you snap and say I want it. It is something that you would have maybe decided a bit earlier. So that's what I'm wanting you to search your mind about. Is it that you're really fed up? Is it this interim time that you're feeling you're fed up? And the other thing I would wish to ask is, I don't know what age you are, but at some point between age 38 and age 45, if a woman hasn't got a little child, a toddler in the house, most of us invariably want to have a baby. So even as you consider all these things, just think as to why that feeling is so strong now. But yes, it can be done, very easily done. The tube ligation, that is, technically it is very easy to do at this stage, 5 months after. We have finished.
We finished.
Ah, good. Very good. There was somebody with persistent candida.
Okay.
And I wanted to tell people that persistent candida is a common, it is candida, it is yeast, it goes by fungus, candida, yeast, thrush, all those are one thing, one and the same thing. And it comes on occasions. Well, every woman, literally after menarche, after starting periods, every woman has it. Every person has it in their stool, but after starting periods, then every woman has it in their vagina. It finds it a nice place to stay, and you will not notice it is there until it flares up, and it will flare up sometimes because your immunity goes down. One of the times your immunity goes really down is in pregnancy. So if you're getting very frequent yeast infections in pregnancy, there is nothing abnormal there. The other times is if you get a big sickness of whatever it is, something that really puts your body down. If you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, anything that lowers your immunity, yeast will come up. The other time that yeast will be an issue is if you take antibiotics, because antibiotics kill some very nice bacteria called lactobacilli that live in the vagina and eat up those things called yeast and other little things. So if you take antibiotics frequently, some antibiotics will kill that lactobacilli and make it possible for the yeast to grow. But what I wanted to mainly bring out is that if you really have persistent yeast, you need to check your blood sugar, because one of the times that yeast will be impossible to treat is if you are starting diabetes and sometimes it's not known and the sugar is totally uncontrolled. Then the yeast will become impossible. In fact, sometimes we check people for sugar just because of the amount of yeast they are getting, and you find. So if you are having very, very frequent yeast infections or some that you can't control for any length of time, kindly check your blood sugar for diabetes. We have finished, eh? Good.
There are questions here on the
That were not there before.
yes.
Okay.
This is Irungu Faith. She says, "Good evening, Daktari. At what stage is one supposed to begin antenatal clinic?"
Immediately you know you are pregnant. And that's because...
Is that antenatal is after?
Oh, antenatal. Antenatal is when you're pregnant. Pregnancy clinics. Clinics attending when you're pregnant.
What is the one before?
What?
Before pregnancy.
It's prenatal.
And after?
Post.
Oh, okay.
Before is pre, during is ante,
Mm.
and after is post.
Okay.
Postnatal.
Postnatal.
Yes. So antenatal is when you're pregnant. She's wanting to know how quickly you start. So you start the first clinic actually as soon as you know you're pregnant, if you are able, because there are some things you get checked then, things like it is not in the tube, it is lying properly in the uterus, and like especially people who have the misfortune of miscarrying pregnancies, then it could be that there is a hormonal insufficiency, and that is usually shown by a little bleed in the pregnancy, in early pregnancy. So as soon as you know you're pregnant, just go and get checked that the pregnancy is healthy, that the pregnancy has a heartbeat, and sometimes we even catch pregnancies when they have a heartbeat and they are starting to bleed. So we are able to give hormones and support that pregnancy, and it's able to live. So as soon as you know you're pregnant, you go for your clinic, and definitely by about week 12, you should go for your clinic, because that's when we check the first checkup that the baby's organs are forming well. So yeah, as soon as you know you're pregnant, go for clinic. and then definitely by week 12, go for clinic. Then you'll be given a schedule as to how often to go for clinic. If the pregnancy is smooth, then it will take longer times. You can be given 4 weeks, 4 weeks, and then 2 weeks, 2 weeks. If there is an issue, then the doctor will advise you as to how frequently, more frequently, to come for antenatal clinic. So I know because of lack of resources, sometimes you are told that you do 4 clinics in a pregnancy. If you can afford it, go as frequently as as early as you can, then the doctor will advise.
All right. The next question, this is Teresa Willis. She says, "Hi doc, I am 2 months pregnant. 2 months, 2 weeks pregnant. Now, please advise me on which fruits and food I can eat because I have ulcers and I can't have any foods with acid. Yeah.
Oh. The main foods you need, you need the 3 categories of food. You need the carbohydrates, you need the proteins, and you need the vitamins. In the proteins, then you need what is called quality protein, and that is animal protein. If you can manage at least 2 meals in a day of animal protein. And one of the animal proteins is egg. So if you eat an egg, that is one protein, 1 meal. And if you eat fish, whatever animal, and you can also eat legumes. It's not that they are not bad. It's just that when you eat, say, a piece of beef, you've eaten all the amino acids that are required. Whereas if you eat meat, for example, you've eaten 1 amino acid and you need many. There are many essential amino acids. So when you are going to use legumes only, then intermix many of them, many different legumes together, so that you get as many amino acids as you can. So if you suffer acidity, then the other thing that would be nice is milk. That would keep your acidity down. Try then to avoid eating food with water. That is one of the biggest issues that people have, tending to take water with food, because that dilutes the acid and makes the digestion worse and makes even the acidity worse. So take water throughout the day, little throughout the day, but don't sit with a meal, and take water before or after. Take at least half an hour before the meal, and then take way after the meal, but not with the meal. So foods that you should eat in the carbohydrates, just you'd have to find out for yourself what is it that gives you acidity. Some people will not be able to stand beans. Some people will not be able to stand jahe. So it would have to be up to yourself, but try to eat good quality protein. At least 2 meals a day should have protein. Carbohydrates, those are not very hard to come by. Take many snacks throughout the day, so that you keep your blood sugar a certain level. We advise that there should be at least 6 meals in a day, because the baby is forming itself all the time, so it needs sugar at all times. So fruit, I don't know what to advise you for fruit, but if you take vegetables, if you take I don't know if things like acid, like orange would give you acidity, but apple would be a good fruit. It doesn't tend to give people a lot of acidity. If you need things like vitamin C or vitamin A, you can get those like from carrot. So there are many varieties. I would feel right for you to Google foods that contain what. That one I would feel it's okay for you to Google foods that would be good. But the main thing is to eat 2 protein meals in a day. at least many snacks so your blood sugar keeps stable, and then eat whichever fruit it is. If you cannot stand any fruits, then get yourself given multivitamins, because then you will need it at some point.
Okay. The next question here says, "Hello, doc. Who should be given hormonal medicines to support pregnancy?"
A number of people. It's very hard to tell who, unfortunately, until they have miscarried. But there are some categories that must receive hormonal support. For example, if you're polycystic, you have polycystic ovaries, and you conceive, then you need hormonal support at all times. Your ovaries are not strong enough to support. So if you're conceiving with polycystic ovaries, you must get hormonal support. Sometimes when the in vitro fertilization is done, then you need hormonal support. Much of the time is when somebody has lost a pregnancy, and then we find that they were bleeding where the pregnancy was attached. Usually, the first 14 weeks or so of pregnancy, the baby is supported with hormones from the ovary that give out the egg. So people usually make what is called a luteocyst to support, the ovary makes a luteocyst to support the pregnancy. So for people, if we were to do a scan and not find a luteocyst, we would want to support that pregnancy. The ovary obviously swells, so it's a cyst that you can find. Alternatively, people who have had a miscarriage and what is called blighted ovum, that a heartbeat never appeared. Sometimes you don't even get to see that there was a bleed, because you find it when it was already dead. So there are many times. So if you are told get hormonal support, then get hormonal support. But categorically, the people with polycystic ovaries, they need hormonal support. Is that all? Is that enough? We are almost 45 minutes.
I think that's the end.
That's the last one.
Yeah. But there is one question. I think I'll just add this last one. It was one of the questions that was asked previously. There's this lady who said that she delivered babies, and it's something to the effect she's trying to get her vagina to be tight again for her husband.
That is Kegels, and that one again we shall deal with it as a topic.
Okay.
You do Kegels. I allowed you to Google Kegels. I allowed people to Google Kegels. Google will answer you properly for Kegels. So go ahead and Google, but we shall talk about it at some point. But yeah, you need. And by the way, it's not just because you delivered vaginally. Anytime you become pregnant, the vagina goes loose, because you see, it's a preparation to deliver the baby. So the hormones loosen it up. So whether you deliver vaginally or by cesarean section, you still need to do Kegels. Yeah, that I can tell you.
All right.
End of story.
That is the end.
Good. That's good. No, by the way, I like answering your questions. So it's just that my throat gives way when I talk quite a bit. Yeah. And I'm usually in the clinic the whole day, yapping and talking the same way I'm talking here. So it becomes a bit dry. That's why. But I like questions. I like people to know. I think that's my passion. That people should know. Yeah, and then make the right choices. That's yeah. So I think the next week we shall not do question and answer. We shall do something else.
We can do the formation of the baby.
Yeah,
because that's a question that keeps recurring.
Yeah, it's asked a lot. Yeah. So we can say bye-bye.
Yeah, I think we can say bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
And you can still send your questions. We shall maybe make another session for question and answers. And don't be unhappy with us if your question is not answered. Sometimes we don't even see the question.
Yeah.
So we don't know what question you are saying we are not answering, but sincerely we try to look at them all and group them together, because some questions are repeated, and group them together. So those ones we feel they can be answered in short, then we are able to answer here. But like I keep telling you, this is not a treatment session. This is a session to make you know and to make you alert that you need to go and see your doctor. Good night and have a lovely, lovely weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.